Hello, welcome, and greetings, everybody. And as you can probably tell by this point, I am deviating from my schedule a little bit. I was initially not going to review this album until much while later, but due to recent unfortunate and tragic events, I have rearranged my schedule a little bit, and I've moved this one up a bit in my lineup. And that obviously what I'm alluding to is the tragic death of longtime heavy metal legend Ozzy Osbourne, former lead singer of Black Sabbath before embarking on a very successful and very iconic solo career. And what you see right here, I am going to be reviewing his 1987 live tribute album, which at the time was a tribute to his guitarist Randy Rhoads, who met a very untimely death. However, now that the situation has changed, I kind of see this as a tribute to Ozzy Osbourne himself. And so therefore, I am going to review this one tonight. Now, a few things. It seems like every time I talk about Ozzy Osbourne, the comment section really seems to blow up, and that is perfectly fine. And a lot of the comments have been very great, very supportive, which I appreciate. However, there are a lot of people out there that are very, very opinionated, and that's also fine. And given the circumstances, if you're going to post a comment, please make sure you keep it respectful, because I am very much trying to pay tribute to a legend who had a very big impact on my life. Now, I usually don't respond to comments that are negative unless someone misquotes me. And I've only actually deleted 2 comments ever since this channel started, which is pretty good. But please just keep it respectful, and please just understand that, again, I'm doing my very best to pay tribute to a man who is very much, in all sense of the word, a legend. So anyways, as you probably already know, as I just said, Ozzy Osbourne was the initial lead singer of one of the greatest hard rock, heavy metal bands ever, Black Sabbath. And they originated in the early 70s, and they had a string of absolute powerhouse albums, from the self-titled debut in the year 1970 to Paranoid later in the year 1970, and that had some of their biggest hits ever, such as War Pigs, the title track, Iron Man, Fairies Wear Boots, and then they continued on with the aforementioned success with Master of Reality, Black Sabbath Volume 4, which I did review recently, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage, which I have also reviewed. However, in the mid-70s, they kind of lost a little bit of steam. I'm not going to say that these next 2 albums were bad. They were not. But they weren't quite up to the level of those initial 6 albums. And those 2 albums, of course, were Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. Well, ever since the early to mid-70s, a lot of the members had been very much diving into substance abuse, particularly Ozzy and Bill Ward. And due to his very erratic behavior, Ozzy Osbourne was let go in, I think, 1979. And he then decided to embark on a solo career. And I'm really glad he did, because he put out a ton of really great records. The first of which was released in the year 1980, and it was entitled Blizzard of Oz. And he recruited a whole bunch of other members, such as Randy Rhoads, the aforementioned Randy Rhoads, who was the lead guitarist, formerly of Quiet Riot. Then we had Bob Daisley on the bass guitar, and he had previously been a member of Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, yes, with Ronnie James Dio. And the drummer was a man by the name of Lee Kerslake, who is most well known for his work with Uriah Heep. He is their longtime drummer, and I'm fairly certain out of all of the drummers Uriah Heep has ever had, Lee Kerslake has been on the most number of albums, and he was with the band the longest. Well, for a very brief period also, he was in Ozzy Osbourne's band. And so in 1980, they released their very first record entitled Blizzard of Oz. And I have reviewed that before on Album Rant, and it was a great record. It had some of his all-time biggest hits on there, such as, I Don't Know, Crazy Train, which comes on the radio constantly, Goodbye to Romance, which was kind of him bookending his career with Black Sabbath. We had a little instrumental called D. We had Suicide Solution, Mr. Crowley, No Bone Movies, Revelation Mother Earth, and Steal Away the Night. Now, after that, they embarked on a tour through Europe, and it was the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour. And I'm going to talk about some of the songs that they played on that tour in just a second. But then after that, they went back to the studio and they recorded their second album entitled Diary of a Madman, which I have also reviewed before on Album Rant. And it included some more of their greatest hits ever, his greatest hits ever, such as Over the Mountain, Flying High Again, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, Believer, Little Dolls, Tonight, SATO, and then, of course, the very eerie yet epic title track, Diary of a Madman. Well, things were not going so well between Sharon and Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. They were having some kind of dispute over royalties being paid, and so, to make a long story short, Daisley and Kerslake were fired after the recording of Diary of a Madman, and they were replaced by Tommy Aldridge on drums and Rudy Sarzo on the bass guitar, also formerly of Quiet Riot. And so then after that, they embarked on the second leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour, and even more of the songs from that tour I'm going to be talking about in just a second. And then finally, in October of 1981, Diary of a Madman was released, and for some reason, they credited Sarzo and Aldridge as the bass player and drummer, even though it was actually Daisley and Kerslake who played on it, who performed on it. And I have talked about that before. Well, then, shortly after that, in the year 1982, Randy Rhoads tragically lost his life, and Ozzy recruited another guitar player by the name of Jake E. Lee, and he recorded 2 studio albums with Jake E. Lee on lead guitar, named Bark at the Moon and The Ultimate Sin. Well, I'm pretty sure he had been planning on doing this for a while, but just things weren't really working out. But in 1987, he put together some recordings from both the first and the second leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour, and he assembled them into a live album that was intended to pay tribute to the fallen Randy Rhoads. And that brings me to the subject of tonight's review. So you see right here, this is the Ozzy Osbourne Randy Rhoads tribute. It's a tribute to Randy Rhoads, but it's an Ozzy Osbourne record. So opening this up right here, we have a gatefold, and we have some pictures of the band, Randy obviously being highlighted, so we see that right there. There are the 2 guys right there. And then over here on the back, we have a letter, which I think was, no, it's a letter to the fans from Ozzy. And then over here, we have the track list. And so I'm going to go through this, and I'm mostly going to be talking about the live versions and kind of talking about what the live recordings did with these songs as opposed to the studio version, so there's that. But anyways, as I said before, on this record, Rudy and Tommy primarily play on most of the songs, except for the songs that were recorded on the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour, and those obviously had Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley. So right here on side 1, it starts off with I Don't Know, which is the first track off of Blizzard of Oz as well. But there's a little intro before it, which I really like. It's actually a classical medieval piece called O Fortuna. I think I said that correctly, but whatever. But man, that intro is just absolutely epic, okay? It sounds, like I said, very medieval. and it kind of builds and builds, and as soon as it crescendos, you hear Ozzy go, rock and roll, and then it just fades right into the opening track, I Don't Know. And this is one of my very favorite Ozzy Osbourne songs ever. It's very fast, very electric, very heavy, and Randy Rhoads just had a style. I can't really even fully describe it, but all I know is that it was awesome. And I did misquote the lyrics the first time that I reviewed this song on the Blizzard of Oz review, but anyways, it goes, people look to me and say, is the end near, when is the final day? What's the future of mankind? How do I know I got left behind? Everyone goes through changes, looking to find the truth. Don't look to me for answers. Don't ask me. I don't know. And it seems to be that everyone's just kind of questioning and asking, what's the meaning of life? What happens after we pass? Where are we? Where are we going? And he's just accepting the fact that he doesn't know. There's no way that he can know, so why worry about it? But anyways, as I said, the song is very electric, very fast, really gets my blood pumping, and I really love it. In the middle, there's a little interlude where it starts to get a little bit soft and a little bit melodic, and that's absolutely okay. I really think it complements the rest of the song very well. And then he goes into this other little segment where he keeps saying, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's up to you. And then it picks up again, and Randy just has another very explosive guitar solo. And it's just absolutely incredible. So that is the first track from side one. Then we go to the second track, which is Crazy Train. Now, this song is permanently ingrained into our pop culture. It is just part of society. It's just that simple, okay? The song is very famous. It is incredibly popular, and I think just about everyone knows it. Now, the studio version starts off with, all aboard, and then Ozzy's going, aye, aye, aye. The live version does not do that. And I'm fine with that because I'm kind of sick of hearing the intro. But again, we still have that bass part, that bass intro, the don't, don't. And then Randy just comes in, his electric needle-like guitar solo, or guitar intro. And then the song just picks up into that main iconic rhythm. And yes, it is a good song. I am kind of sick of hearing the studio version, but I actually think this live version is even better. I think it flows better, I think it sounds better, and I think the entire band is just on point. One thing that I've often noticed is towards the end, Ozzy really seems to change the lyrics when he performs this song live. Maybe it's just the versions I've heard, but in the studio version he says, crazy, I just cannot bear. I'm living with something that just isn't fair. But in this version, I swear he says, crazy, oh, what do I care? I'm living with something I don't want to share. Why he changed that up, I'm not really sure, but it's okay. But yes, great live version, has much more of an emotional punch to it, and I actually think it works better than the studio version. I'm sure a lot of people out there are probably saying, blasphemy, what are you talking about? And that's fine, go right at it. But then we come to the next track, which is called Believer. Now, for the longest time, I thought this was recorded on the Diary of the Madman tour because, of course, there were songs on here from Diary of a Madman. But again, this is on the second leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour. Now, I've kind of assembled a timeline here to kind of put everything in perspective. So I kind of already said this, but first, Blizzard of Oz was recorded. Then Blizzard of Oz was released. Then we had the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour. Then Diary of a Madman was recorded. Then Daisley and Kerslake were fired. And then the second leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour happened. Well, this version of Believer came from this leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour. And you can see right here, by that point, Diary of a Madman had already been written and recorded. So again, looks like they're promoting some songs from the upcoming album that's coming up. So I'm totally fine with that. But this one starts off with a really sick bass intro. It's like, don't, And I really love these lyrics. Watching the time go and feeling belief grow, rise above the obstacles. People beseech me, but they will never teach me things that I already know, I know. You've got to believe in yourself or no one will believe in you. Imagination like a bird on the wing, flying free for you to use. Okay, baby. And the song isn't particularly fast. It's kind of slow, kind of brooding. It broods along, but it's also still very, very heavy, and it's still a great song. And again, I love the rhythm, and the live version really does it much better for me than the studio version. Again, studio version is awesome. I just think this version is even awesomer. So, rounding out side one, it all closes with Mr. Crowley, which starts out very, very, demonically. It's got this organ intro that just sounds like it's coming from the pits of hell, and it's actually pretty awesome. Whenever I was a kid and I played the Blizzard of Oz CD in the car, I always skipped over Mr. Crowley. Didn't want to freak my parents out or anything. I also listened to Merciful Fate at the time, so this obviously pales in comparison. But anyways, getting back on subject, that we have that organ intro that just sounds so evil. And then it comes in and the entire band is in. And this one also is a little bit slow and a little bit brooding, but that doesn't make it bad. I mean, it's obviously very good, still very heavy. And of course, it's like, Mr. Crowley, what went on in your head? And I'm not going to sing too much more because that was probably pretty painful. But yes, the song does move right along at that very slow pace, but it's also got a very evil and mystical feel behind it. Now, towards the end, and this is even more amplified on the live version, after he goes through those little segments a few times, Randy Rhoads again takes center stage, and there's a huge explosive guitar outro that just goes on and on and on. And while the song never really gets fast, or my definition of fast, I do like that it keeps building up and eventually reaches a state where it's just going all out, balls to the wall. We just have that guitar solo pretty much going till the very end of the song. This one definitely dives into occult themes, and I think it suits the environment very well. So anyway, side one was incredibly strong. What is my favorite from side one? Again, I am only counting the live versions. I think I am going to go with I Don't Know. Believer might have been my favorite if we were going with studio versions, but I think I Don't Know just sounds so awesome in the live setting. It's got more power behind it. It's got more emotion behind it. I really like it. So now we are coming over here to side number two. And it starts off with Flying High again, which is another song that is off the Diary of a Madman album. And when they recorded this, Diary of a Madman had not been released. However, it had been recorded and the album had been finished. And Flying High again delves very heavily into drug references, which is one of the many things that Ozzy is very well known for. And this one, it's got a very slick rhythm to it. It's like, don't, and I really kind of think it's pretty interesting. He definitely did not write the song 8 times every album. He definitely did not. But, you know, it's, again, kind of, I wouldn't call it fast, but it's definitely a very swinging rhythm, which I really, really like about it. But, I mean, what do we got here? Got a crazy feeling I don't understand. Got to get away from here. Feeling like I should have kept my feet on the ground, waiting for the sun to appear. Mama's gonna worry. I've been a bad, bad boy. No use saying sorry. It's something that I enjoy. And I don't know, just again, the rhythm I really like. I think it's a very well-written song. And I think it flows a lot better once again in the live setting. I have heard other live versions of this song on other live albums, such as Live and Loud, which came out in 1993. It didn't work so well on that one. I think Randy really nails this song, and it's one of my very favorite Ozzy Osbourne songs. But then we come to a song that it took me a very long time to warm up to. Revelation Mother Earth, which is kind of the counterpart, I guess, to the title track of the Diary of a Madman album. Revelation Mother Earth, obviously coming from Blizzard of Oz. And this one is acoustic, and it's very dark. It's very eerie. Eerie is probably the word. And it really kind of moves along at a very eerie, almost scary pace. And it's a very, very dark song. And this was not a song that I really liked that much as a kid. But over the years, it has really started to grow on me. And I think I do really like it by this point. And so again, it broods along, and it's got this... It never fully explodes until the very end. It never really starts picking up till the very end. That's fine. We get to hear Randy's acoustic yet needle-like performance, and it's just haunting. I'm just going to say that right now, and I really love it. But then, just like the Blizzard of Oz album, it segues into Steal Away the Night, which is more of a straightforward rocker, but it works incredibly well. Now, on the Blizzard of Oz album, I thought the song almost sounded like classic rock and less heavy metal, which is fine. I'm a big fan of classic rock, but it sounds a lot more metal on this tribute album. Now, is it actually a metal song? I got ripped to shreds a few weeks ago for saying that an album was a metal album when someone else didn't think it was, so you be the judge on that one. But this one's very, very fast, and it kind of conforms to the verse-chorus arrangement, which is totally fine, but I think it moves very, very well. But something about this version of Steal Away the Night, it's got a really great drum solo by Tommy Aldridge at the end, and so this version runs for about 8 minutes or so, and I think it's a great drum solo, and of course, does it stand up to maybe the likes of Neil Peart from Rush? Probably not, but I still think it's awesome. I did see Tommy Aldridge live once in concert when he was with Whitesnake. This was a few years ago, so he was with Whitesnake at that point at least. I'm not sure if he's still with them, but who knows. But he was pretty amazing, and I'm really glad I got to see that. So rounding out side 2, I think my favorite is Flying High Again. I love the song on the Diary of a Madman album. I like it even more on the tribute album, so there is that. So, side 3 is right here. And it begins with Suicide Solution. And I think I may have mentioned this earlier, but this song got Ozzy into some trouble quite a while ago because he was actually blamed for 2 teenagers tragically committing suicide. And they had been listening to Ozzy Osbourne's music, and the connection was drawn that his music drove them to suicide, when in reality, apparently, according to Ozzy, in 1991, he said the song was about the alcohol-related death of AC/DC's Bon Scott in the year 1980. Now, Bob Daisley has come out and said that it's not about that, but who do I believe? Well, don't ask me, I don't know. But I'm just saying that is what Ozzy is saying. And this one is also kind of mid-tempo, I would say. It starts out, and right at the beginning, we have a very explosive guitar. It's like, and it's absolutely awesome. It moves along, again, at kind of a brooding mid-tempo pace, which is fine. It's still very heavy and incredibly electric, and Randy is, again, an absolute beast on here. But again, we've got, what do we got here? Wine is fine, but Wiki's quicker. Suicide is slow with liquor. Take a bottle to drown your sorrows, then it floods away tomorrow. And yeah, it's really great. This version's even better than the studio version. Again, it's more electric and it just flows better. I can't fully describe it, but I just love the rhythm of the live version. Much better than I do the studio version, but the studio version is still really great. Now, the thing is this. Much like Steal Away the Night, we get a little extra bonus on this version. We have another very extensive guitar solo by Randy Rhoads. he is going to take center stage here, and he's going to just jam for a couple of minutes, I think 2, 3, 4 minutes or so. And it's a great guitar solo, okay? It is very electric and very heavy, and the man was an absolute legend who we tragically lost way too early. So anyways, after Suicide Solution, we now come to kind of a 3-part suite. We get 3 Black Sabbath covers. Now, Ozzy Osbourne has never shied away from incorporating Black Sabbath covers into his set list. He did it all the time. This time he chose Iron Man, Children of the Grave, and Paranoid. Good selection. Absolutely. Of course, he cannot dominate his set list with Black Sabbath covers, but there are plenty of other great ones he could have chosen, like War Pigs, or Wheels of Confusion, or Into the Void, or Symptom of the Universe. He just happened to pick these 3 at this specific point, and I think that's awesome. So the Iron Man starts off, and Ozzy just goes, all right, let's go for Iron Man. It's like, don't, and you all know the riff. It's very iconic. It's overplayed to death, so I'm not going to dwell too much more on that. But it's a good live version, okay? It's definitely much heavier than the studio version, which is understandable because this was recorded in 1981, while the studio version was recorded in 1970 when music was not quite as heavy as it was in the 80s. Again, flows very well, but something feels unfinished on this version. Yeah, they only play about 2.5 minutes or so. After the second verse, it just kind of goes off in a different direction, and Ozzy just goes, all right, but let's keep rocking and rolling because we're going to do Children of the Grave, and then it goes right into Children of the Grave. And again, this version is way heavier than the studio version. That's really a good thing because I really like that. I like it when it's heavier. I think the band does a really great job covering the parts of Tony and Geezer and Bill. And again, great rhythm, great drumming. That drum intro is just absolutely incredible. And again, Randy is just an absolute beast. They do play the entire thing, and I think it's a great version. And then finally, we have, all right, we're going to do Paranoid! And this is one of the more famous versions of Paranoid. This is the version that Ozzy selects for the majority of his greatest hits compilations. And it's very easy to see why, because this is another very fast, explosive cover of Paranoid. Again, it is much, much heavier than the original studio version. The original studio version was really awesome, but this version just absolutely is so much heavier. Is it better? Well, that's another topic of discussion. But it's definitely heavier, I'll say that. And I could be wrong about this, but in the studio version, there's a little solo in the middle, and it sounds like it's being played on the keyboard. I think it is. I could be wrong about that. Well, that is rectified on this version because Randy plays the guitar solo during that initial keyboard solo, and it sounds really, really awesome. Now, what's my favorite from side number 3? It's probably Paranoid. This version of Paranoid, I think, is one of the better cover versions of Paranoid. Of course, nothing can touch the original. The original is still great, albeit not quite as heavy, but out of all the versions that are not the original version, I think this one might be the best. And again, very iconic. So, that is the end of side number 3. We have one more side, and it's side number 4, and I'm going to bring back my timeline real quickly. Now, on side 1, 2, and 3, Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge were the bass player and the drummer. Well, on side 4, it's actually Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, because these two songs were recorded during the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour. Now, if you look right here, once again, this right here is the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour. You will notice that Daisley and Kerslake were fired in between the first and second legs. So on this leg, which side 4 came from, Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake are still in the band. And it starts off with Goodbye to Romance, which I kind of said earlier was kind of him bookending his time with Black Sabbath. It was one of the first songs he wrote after he left Black Sabbath, and it's a pretty sweet ballad, actually. I used to always think it was kind of whiny, like when I was a kid, but I have come to appreciate it much more in my latter years, and I think it works pretty well. Now, I'm not sure what the deal is or anything, but I'm guessing it's just how they recorded, or the recording equipment they had at the time when they recorded this live version. But it sounds a lot more flat and underproduced when compared to the other 3 sides. Now, that may not be a bad thing, but I do kind of like the way they produced the first 3 sides. I like the sound and the balance that they struck. This version of Goodbye to Romance sounds a lot more raw and underproduced, and some people may like that. But I just think it's kind of lacking the emotional kick that it could have had, but still, I mean, really good version, and that keyboard outro, it really kind of hits the heart pretty deeply, and I think that's really good. No Bone Movies is next, and this has never been my favorite Ozzy Osbourne song. It's really more of a boogie rocker, which, you know, may not be a bad thing, but I always felt like it was kind of a throwaway track, and many others seem to think that also, but I mean, the live version, it's serviceable, I'll say that. I think it is a little bit better than the studio version, which is good, but like I said, this was recorded on the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour, and as I said earlier, I think it was just underproduced, and because of that, it seems a little bit flatter in comparison to the other stuff that is on this live album, but still a great version, and for that, you know, it's worth a listen. Now, we have a bonus track. We have D, which on the Blizzard of Oz album was like a 50 second or so guitar doodle, and it was, you know, a pretty good placeholder, way to pad out the running time. Well, this is an expanded version. It includes outtakes, okay? So it includes, you know, maybe segments that Randy wrote for the song that may have just been removed by the record company, or Ozzy, or Sharon, I really don't know, but it is kind of disposable, but I think it, again, is worth a listen to the longtime fans who really appreciate Randy Rhoads and all that he did. And so, yeah, D is the last song. It's kind of a bonus track. It wasn't recorded live. This is very much a studio version, and it includes all the little snippets that he removed. And do I think it's great? Not necessarily, but it is good, and like I said, he was trying to pay tribute to his fallen friend. I think that was a really good way to do that. Anyways, my favorite from side number 4, I think this may be the weakest side on the entire album, but I'm probably going with Goodbye to Romance. I like the studio version. I still like the live version. The other 2, I always thought were some of his weaker songs, but yeah, that is it for the review of the Randy Rhoads tribute, which now I also see as an Ozzy Osbourne tribute. And so I want to say thank you all tonight for joining me on this episode. This was a very special episode to both me and probably many others out there. And I want to say thank you again to y'all for joining me, but I'd also like to say thank you to Ozzy, who, while I never, obviously never met him, I never got to see him in concert. I came close 3 times, but something came up every single time. So I never got to see him in concert, but having said all that, even though, again, he was not someone that I knew personally, he still had a very profound effect on my life, on my childhood, on my upbringing. He was always one of my heroes growing up, and so I just want to say thank you for doing everything you did, and I want to honor your life, and I hope you are resting in peace because you very deserve to. So anyways, that is going to wrap everything up. Next week's episode is going to break all the house rules, but until then, have a very pleasant evening, and may he rest in peace.